Hello, your random internet pharmacist here. I want to do a follow-up to my tariff video about the fact that the decrepit Cheeto would like to put tariffs on the pharmaceuticals that come into the country because they're manufactured outside of the country. I want to explain all of why that's problematic, especially if you don't have plans or ideas for how that can be changed to bring it into the United States. As I mentioned in another video, you can't just pop up manufacturing for pharmaceuticals. And there's a load of reasons why. So let me use Tylenol as an example. We all know what Tylenol is. Tylenol is over the counter. We use it for pain, fever. Okay. When you buy a bottle of Tylenol, you expect each tablet to have 325 milligrams of Tylenol in it, if that's the one you bought. You expect each tablet to contain 325 milligrams each. So that requires a process. That requires manufacturing to be precise, because we have to make sure that each one of those tablets have 325 milligrams of Tylenol in them. Now, after each batch is made, they are given a lot number. If you've ever looked at your bottles, there is an expiration date and there is a lot number. That lot number corresponds to all of the Tylenol tablets that were made in that batch. Each batch is then tested to ensure that 325 milligrams of Tylenol is in each one of those tablets. If they do not get to a certain standard, then that batch has to be removed. That batch has to be thrown away, discarded of, and it cannot be sold, because that means that each tablet cannot be said with full certainty that it has 325 milligrams of Tylenol in each one. Now, that is just the precision of making sure each tablet has the correct amount of medication in it. It needs to be clean. It needs to be sanitary, because I'm pretty sure most people do not want to be putting tablets into their body that are covered with microbes, that are covered with dirt, that are covered with all types of things. So, that is mass manufacturing and how it is extremely complicated. And I didn't even scratch the surface. That is just the quick, understanding. And there's even standards that they have to follow. The U.S. Pharmacopoeia, the United States Pharmacopoeia, USP for short, makes all different types of standards that we have to follow, whether it's manufacturing or a pharmacist is compounding the medication. We have two different types of compounding. Well, three technically, if you want to count hazardous drugs like cancer medications. But when we compound medications, we have a load of standards that we need to follow. The USP makes these standards so that they are enforceable and we can ensure people are following the rules. USP makes a few different chapters for the compounding of medications. When we compound medications, they are not available through manufacturing. So they are a strength that is not commercially made. That is part of the law. We cannot compound medications that are commercially made unless there is a shortage. Ozempic is a good example of a recent shortage that happened where compounding was allowed because of the shortage. And once the shortage was removed, compounding is no longer available because it's commercially made. Now, when we compound, we have the two different types. We have non-sterile compounding. Non-sterile compounding requires less standards, but still needs to be done in a controlled and clean environment. Non-sterile compounding includes suspensions, tablets, capsules, ointments, lotions, things that we can take by mouth or things that we put on topically, but we're not putting into the bloodstream. Now, for medications that we would put into the bloodstream, we use sterile compounding. Sterile compounding requires a load of things to be done. Most sterile compounding is done in the hospital, but it is not restricted to just the hospital. Some compounding pharmacies do have the capabilities to do sterile compounding. But when we do sterile compounding, we're doing things like IVs. Eye drops have to be sterile, so if you're making an eye drop, it has to be done sterilely. But more times than not, it is going to be something that we are injecting into the body. The third one, like I said, if you want to count, the third one is cancer medications. Anything that is hazardous, so they need to be done a little bit differently than just the regular sterile medications. But we have loads of things to follow, because when you think about sterile compounding and we're injecting something into a patient's body, the slightest thing can cause a problem. I'm sure many people have watched TV and they've saw air embolisms. Air embolism just stands for an air clot. Okay, if you introduce air into the bloodstream, it will cause a clot and it can kill you. Will kill you more than likely. But when I teach all of this stuff, manufacturing, compounding, all of it, because I teach all of it, I tell my students the importance of the fact that if you make even the minor mistake, you can kill somebody. It's a fact. You do a calculation wrong, you can hurt somebody. You compound it incorrectly, you can hurt someone. You're not paying attention and following the rules, you can hurt someone. It is that serious. And this is why talking about tariffing pharmaceutical medications is a horrible idea, because these things are not simple. These things are not easy. These things take time, and it could take years for manufacturing companies to set up in this country. It's not feasible. And this is why I have such a problem with even the mention of it. Because it is clear he may have thought about what it would do to people, but he did not think it through, and it's just not feasible. I truly believe the man doesn't actually know a lot of things. He claims to know a lot of things, but he doesn't actually know a lot of things. And this is the harmful part, because he doesn't take the time to think his actions through and the actual impact that it could make. He does a lot of evil things, but I truly believe the knowledge is not there to understand. And that is why it is so important that we talk about it and we continue to talk about the impact it'll have and the ramifications and how things actually work, so that people, more people than just myself, are educated in these ideas and these things that he's trying to do, so that they also can talk about it. It's sharing knowledge. That is what community is about. It's not about gatekeeping information. It's about sharing information. So as always, if you have questions, by all means ask. I'm happy to answer them. I don't know everything, but these are things I do understand and I do know something about, and I'm happy to share them.